Happy Tuesday. So I'm really excited about my next guest. I feel like I have like a weekly show now. Like I feel like I should be like a TV show host or something, hostess. No, but in all seriousness, my goal is to keep bringing you content that is going to inspire you, content that will make you think, content that will educate you, content that will help you be a better person. So that's the goal. Now, obviously, like I said in my last live, I don't have all the answers. So I bring on different people to. So today we have someone super awesome. We're adding her right now. So just give me a second. See if this works. Should have worked by now. Oh, there we go. Yay!
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Awesome. Well, I would, people are going to come on. It's just the middle of the day. And because I work for myself, I kind of forget about that. Like, what do you mean you're not around on Facebook? Oh, you're working. Okay. But
I understand.
Yeah. So how do I pronounce your name? Kailey?
You got it. It's like Bailey, but with a K.
Okay. Awesome. Good. Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you're passionate about?
Well, I am a writer and a speaker, and I like to say that I'm a wounded healer. And for the last decade, I've essentially been facilitating healing spaces, both online and in person. I predominantly work with women, although I have had many men that I've worked with as well. And that space is really just one for women to show up authentically and to be honest. Because I found in my own life and in my own experience, and in my own healing journey, breaking through barriers where I felt stuck, or working through my fears, working through trauma and healing, mental health struggles, all those things, there wasn't a whole lot of space in my life that I felt like I could really just be honest about what was going on. And so I found that, you know, especially, I'm 31 now, but I found especially in my early 20s, I started to feel this separation between this person that I was presenting to the world and the person that I actually, you know, was behind. And it wasn't that one was fake and one was not. It's just that I was starting to create this separation between what I would let people see and what I would not. And as I progressed in age and in my career and in what I was doing, it started to really put shackles on me. So I started to experience more shame, more anxiety, more depression, more negative self-talk, all those things. And so as I kind of acknowledged that and started working through some of those things, the space that I brought for women was a lot more open and honest. And I think that's really where my work started to take off. Was when I started dealing with those own things in my life, and welcoming people into that and saying like, hey, I did this, and like, are you doing it too? Because this really is not serving us at all. Right. So let's talk about it, and let's work through it, and let's pray for each other and all those things. And so yeah, that's pretty much what I do, whether I'm writing, whether I'm speaking at a conference, whether I'm doing healing work with people. That's essentially what we're tackling.
That's awesome. I actually really resonate with that. The two sides of you were it's not that one's fake and one's real.
No.
It's what are you letting people see? Yeah, that's pretty much my life summed up in like one sentence. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's see. I wrote down some things that I wanted to. Yes,
Jack, I'm Canadian. I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
That's awesome. Okay, so today I posted a quote about people not trying out things due to fear, right? Mm-hmm. And like, what would they do if they weren't afraid? If they knew they were going to be successful, what is it that they would do? So what encouragement would you give to people who are living in a place where they're stuck in fear?
Mm-hmm. I think the key most important thing is really to get honest with yourself. And my favorite question that I ask people is, are you listening to fear or are you listening to love? And what are those voices actually saying to you? And I think when you can pinpoint what those voices are saying, you can not only understand like where the fear is holding you back, but you can actually start to look at the root. Where is it coming from? So, for example, if you're afraid of, I don't know, let's say you're afraid of being seen. So, like, what is it that that fear is saying to you about being seen? And if it says perhaps that, you know, you're afraid of what people might think. Well, why are you afraid of what people might think? And then we got to keep going down and down and down. Well, I'm afraid that people might think that I'm egotistical. Okay, so why is that an issue? Where have you heard that being egotistical is bad? And now you're going to keep going, and eventually, 9 times out of 10, what you're going to find is a single moment or a person where that lie or that fear was implanted in your psyche. And that for me is where magic happens, because so many things can happen from that space. You can start to dialogue with yourself in that space. And I like to use archetypes for dialogue, for healing dialogue, and predominantly working a lot of times when we're dealing with insecurities and fear, we're dealing with our inner child is who we're dealing with. So you can start dialoguing with that inner child who's afraid. And you can also start speaking over that situation, like really sitting in that place of, okay, whoever that person was, or whenever that experience was, if I can kind of put myself back in that place and not relive it. I'm not asking you to relive it, but to actually dialogue with yourself in that emotional space. You're really going to understand your own your psyche's blocks a whole lot better than trying to come at it from an adult. Because I don't know if you've experienced this, but as an adult, we like to tell ourselves, this shouldn't be an issue. We should be beyond this. Right. This shouldn't matter. We like should ourselves to death, right? Mm-hmm. And if you've been with any child, that doesn't work. Like it doesn't work with a child as much as it doesn't work with us. And we need to kind of learn to sit with ourselves and to listen to that part of ourselves that is wounded or insecure or hurting. And we need to listen without judgment. And we need to listen without trying to fix it in that moment, which is so important because we want to hurry up and fix everything. And that part of us just wants to be heard. And then after we listen, you know, without judgment, when we listen without trying to fix, then the last part is we need to try and empathize with ourselves. We need to be that voice that we're desperately looking for everybody else in our life to be. Tell me I'm good enough. Tell me I'm loved. Tell me that that should not have happened to me. Tell me that I should have gotten this in my life from these people and I didn't get it. Like validate the heck out of that hurting part of yourself so that that part of you can feel safe. And I promise that that simple act, even though on the outside nothing's changed, you will begin to soften and the fear will just start to do this and dissipate. And the healing really happens from there. But you will see dramatic differences just by doing that simple dialogue with your inner child, from taking any fear in your life. It doesn't matter what it is. But if we find we're triggered, if we find we're insecure, if we're doubting ourselves, if we're worried, if we're stuck in a shame cycle, if we're guilty, like it doesn't matter what it is, any of those hard emotions, is if we really just stop for 1 second and say, okay, am I listening to fear or am I listening to love? And what is it saying to me? And now I'm going to work down to find where that's coming from. And then I'm going to dialogue with myself from that place.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah.
I like it. Our inner child.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times people are fighting, like you said, they're like, okay, well, I shouldn't feel like this, so just get over it. And then what they do is they just pile more stuff on top of that kid who just needs you to say, you know, I'm sorry that happened. you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I hope people are taking notes. Okay. Now, I value authenticity. I would say
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty much what I base most of myself on, right? Like being true and real. And I know that you encourage people to step into their authenticity. So, what I guess would you say to people who want to be authentic? They want to step into that authenticity, but they're receiving a lot of judgment. Could be from social media, could be from people in their lives, and then they're scared to be their true selves, so they end up having that double-sided, person.
Totally. Yeah. I think one of the most important things for us to understand is that there is a difference between vulnerability and authenticity. And the difference between the two is that vulnerability is when you are speaking from a place where you still feel an emotional response. So it means that you are still a little bit shaky in that area, or you're still healing in that area, or you're still walking through things. You know, as a metaphorical state, you're still kind of standing on shaky ground.
Yeah.
When you're in a place of vulnerability, that is not the time to be standing and talking about something. You know, and I even caution people to be talking on social media about things when they are vulnerable. And I can tell you that I have done this the wrong way so many times. And the reason why is because when we are vulnerable, it's still that inner child that is coming forth. And predominantly, we don't walk into the world as our inner child, right? We come into the world as an adult or as other archetypes, as, you know, the maiden or the mother or the goddess, you know, speaking from female archetypes. So when you show up as that inner child that's a little bit vulnerable and insecure, you don't feel shielded or cocooned or held, and everything that comes back at you is going to almost re-wound you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we really need to like heal that place, and when we're in a vulnerable state, that's when we talk with our safe people about those things. And that's how we not only process, but that we actually get comfortable talking about things. And for me, honestly, I have 2, maybe 3 people in my life that I call safe people. And so when I'm vulnerable, those are the people I talk to. And that's it about that thing. And they're people that I deeply trust. I really value their opinion. And most importantly for me is that they know my heart. So even if I'm saying something that they don't like, or that's hard for them to hear, or that they may not agree with, they know that I am coming from a really genuine place, and they're able to receive me despite differences or despite triggers. Because those safe people for me are very different than who I am as an individual. And typically your safe people don't tend to be people that are a lot like you. They're usually quite different from you. So that's a vulnerable state. And then there is the authentic state. And the authentic state is when we feel that we can show up strong and confident and healed. And now is when we can bring that message of whatever we're trying to share with the world, because we're grounded and rooted in who we are and the fact that we are loved, because we've worked through all that insecurity that kind of still couples with the vulnerable state. And then when people come at us, if they, whatever it is that they're going to say, honestly, at that point, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It might sting a little bit, but you've worked through so much of the junk already that you're like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, your safe people will have already processed those things with you that other people are going to say.
Right.
Yeah, so for me, that's what I would suggest. Work through the difference of vulnerability versus authenticity, and asking yourself, what are the things that I'm able to share from an authentic state, and what is still vulnerable and needs to be with my safe people. And so important, especially as leaders, especially when we have, businesses, our followings, our influence, we really, really want to be leading from a place of authenticity and not vulnerability.
Right. But when you work through your vulnerabilities and share authentically, that
Yes.
can help other people deal with their vulnerable places.
Yes. 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 So what you're doing is you're meeting people. It's just that you've walked the chasm.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know what I'm saying? Because your vulnerable state, that mess will become your message.
Mm-hmm.
I promise. It's just that you have to live it and walk it first. And it's not that you can't share anything in real time. It's just that I encourage people to sit with it. Sit with your emotions, sit with your experience, be with it, cradle it, love it, heal it. And when you're in that place, like, you need to be with yourself. And we're always, right? Life is cyclical. It's not linear. And we are always, always learning and growing. And so you're always going to have things to share with the world. It's just probably something that you dealt with maybe, even a month ago or 3 months ago, a year ago, not necessarily what you're wrestling right at the moment.
Right. 100%.
That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, you can make more of an impact once you said, well, this was the thing, and now this is how I've healed, and now this is how you can do it, rather than this sucks, and I just wanted you guys to know that this sucks,
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but ask yourself, when you see that on social media, how does it make you feel? Like, when somebody puts that out there, like, for the most part, I don't know about you, but for me, it makes me feel like I need to help that person.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we can't do that, but we need safe places to do that.
Right.
So, for example, I lead what's called a Sacred Circle Sisterhood. And Ray, you're a part of that. And when I'm in that space, I feel free to be a little bit more vulnerable when I am working through things, because it's a smaller, safer knit circle. And I know that the women that are showing up to learn from me also want to see me as a human being. So it's not that we totally negate that part of ourselves, that the vulnerable states. It's just that we need to be a little bit more careful and compassionate towards that inner child part that's still healing.
Right. So it's really also where and who are you with?
Exactly. And you'll know who your people are.
Right.
We all have like those inner circles, right? And it's not to make a hierarchy or to make people more important. It's just that we all understand what are the masses and like, what is my core inner circle?
Right.
Whether that's because you're part of it or because you're leading it.
Right. 100%. Okay. Very interesting. All right, now let's head to energy, right? So I'm a big believer in energy and trading energy and picking up on people's energy in the world around us when you first meet people, right? And so a lot of people will call that listening to your gut in layman's terms. For me, I think it's much bigger than that. And I think some people have shut down that little voice. But I guess what light can you shed on that part of listening to your gut or picking up on people's energy?
Yeah. Wow, there's a big, huge hawk that just flew in front of my window. It's cool.
Yeah.
Energy. I think that we've really been in a culture that is teaching us in many ways, consciously and subconsciously, to not trust ourselves and to look for answers from someone else, from an authority figure. And I think that there was good intention in that. So I'm not demeaning that altogether. But I think one of the fallouts of that is that we've really, really come to a place of distrusting anything that doesn't have, a textbook attached to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That we can't give a intellectual answer to. And, regardless of your beliefs, we all have this sense, this gut, this instinct, and everybody's experienced it from time to time. And so when we get to that place where like, maybe I'm ready to, work with this again or not dismiss this anymore, I think we need to really lean into those moments and choose, are we going to dismiss it or call it coincidence, or happenstance or whatever it is? Or are we really going to lean into our own inner knowing? And, we can fleece it. We can test it. We can dialogue with it and see where it goes from there, because like anything, it's a muscle. It really, really is. And as you exercise that muscle and as you kind of test that out in your own life, the more and more you're going to trust it. And if you're seeing a theme, even when we were talking about the inner child, everything comes down to trust. We need to build a trusting relationship, because when we trust, that's where healing happens. That's where transformation happens. That's where healing happens and confidence comes from, and all those things that enable us to grow and become the best versions of ourselves. So I think the same thing is with our gut and our intuition. We all have it, but we have to come to a place where we realize that part of ourselves has really been shut down. And really, by looking outside myself for all of the answers, where has that gotten me?
Right.
Am I where I want to be? Am I the best version of myself? Have I gotten all the best advice and answers by looking outside? And we do need to check our own heart's motives. Like, are we coming from a place of fear, or are we coming from love? Are we listening to our soul, or are we listening to our ego? These are all things we need to learn to dialogue with ourselves in. And as we do that, we'll begin to understand and trust ourselves a whole lot more.
Right. And then
and our inner knowing.
Right. And like you said, it's a muscle. So the more you do it, the more you see the results, and then the more you can trust that. And then if you need a sounding board, so you go to your people.
Totally. It's very much so. And you'll find too, as you do the inner child work, dealing with your triggers and your fears, you'll find very quickly that a lot of the reasons you don't trust yourself, or you don't trust that inner voice or that gut, is because you feel in the past that you've made wrong decisions, or you've hurt yourself because of your decisions, and they're usually linked to the same things you're fearing. Right. So you'll start to see a whole lot of overlap. And as you heal those fears and insecurities and dialogue with that inner child, at the same time, you're going to start building that trust relationship with yourself.
Right. So it's all a domino effect.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's all linked.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So let's end off with this. We all talk about self-love, right? And self-acceptance and trusting yourself and all of that. But at the same time, we want to grow into being our best selves, right? So how do the two correlate? Meaning loving yourself for who you are, but then pushing yourself to be better at the same time. So not accepting, right? So loving who you are right now, but not accepting it and staying there, but always growing.
Yeah. I love this. I really love because I find, we all have a message and we all have a focus, but I find a lot of times we're getting one or the other. We're not really getting a message of both. And I always like to say it's both and. Mm-hmm. It's gray. It's not black. It's not white. It's you got to hold it all together, right? Everything belongs. And it's the same with this. And for me, one of the most effective practices that have helped me do this, because I have a very strong, I'm very driven, I'm very ambitious as a person. And I found when I realized that I had negated that part of myself that, was compassionate with myself, was accepting with where I was at, where I was insecure and not healed, I wanted to turn on that other part of myself and be like, you're bad. You're the one who made me this way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right, you're too much.
And you're too much. And it was literally like, I'm too much. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm too much. And it was like, and then I would be at war every day with myself. And the negative self-talk was literally like guns a-blazing back and forth every day. And it was just like, sometimes I wanted to scream and be like, shut up. Like, So the best practice for me to help me work through this was to recognize that in all of us, regardless of our gender identity, we have feminine energy and we have masculine energy, and it's both and that feminine energy in us is the part of us that is to be. It's the part of us that is good to just accept where we're at. It's the loving and compassionate part of ourselves. And then there's the masculine side, and the masculine side is the doer. It's the achiever, it's the go-getter, and we all have both sides. But because we're living in a society that praises the masculine and almost forgets, neglects, or even suppresses the feminine, we're getting better. We're getting better at finding balance, but it's still like this. We need to come to a space where we can bring our own honor and our own reverence and our own attention of the feminine energy. So the being, the loving, the accepting, the empathizing part of ourselves, we need to create space for that too. And I believe that they serve together, that we can't serve, we cannot love, we cannot live, we cannot lead without both. And so it's like we have to stop first and be with ourselves and love ourselves and accept ourselves, and that will fuel our doing. Right. It's the same with, if you look at, there's like, we're in this huge, you want to call it an epidemic, but everything is about self-care right now. And that's why. It's because it's like, oh my goodness, yeah, I forgot about me. Right? So in the same way that we need to learn to love ourselves before we can go out and love the world, because we can only give away what we've first received. Right. So if you have not given yourself that love, if you have not filled up with your own needs energetically, how can you pour out into the world? And I like to use this analogy of like using a mason jar. Okay, so if this is me, and I have not filled all the way up first, right? Not only am I robbing everybody else of what I can fully give the world in my life, because I'm not filling up totally, but now I'm going to walk around the rest of the day and I'm going to ask everybody else to fill my cup. Right. Please, please fill my cup for me, right? So I'm pouring out, and it's like, but now as I'm pouring out, there's more and more I'm desperately looking, because I'm constantly looking. So we could almost look at it, it's, dare I say, selfish not to honor yourself first, not to love yourself first, to accept yourself, to fill yourself up. Because then you're going out and you're simply loving and you're simply giving and you're simply serving without asking for anything in return.
Right, and you can get burnt out. I think, though, I guess it's the driver in me, because I'm the go-getter, do everything,
Yes.
From a very young age. If I got a book report, I would finish it the night I got it and hand it back in, like that type of person.
Yes.
I want to caution people not to get stuck in the place of self-care, meaning all you do is self-care to the point where now it's time for action, and then you don't.
Yeah,
it's leading up to action.
That's my point. That's what I'm saying. Is like, you have to have both. Mm-hmm. We need to do this one so that it can go and fuel the other. Right. And it's a constant process, like there are seasons in life where, with any sort of sickness, it takes 1 month of rest and recovery for every year that you've been sick. Mm. So, yeah. And so there are seasons in life where we need to honor our rest and our own healing journey. But it doesn't mean that we completely stop doing anything. You don't have to. It's just that we need to be cautious and wise, right? And for me, like on the other side, so, of my work, it looks like, what this process looks like for me is that every day I spend 1 hour before I pick up my phone, before I go and work, before I do anything, 1 hour in the morning I spend with me. I do my quiet time, I do my reading, I do my meditation, I eat the right foods, I take a shower, I get dressed, all that. And that is what fuels for me to go out the rest of the day. Right. So it doesn't mean I spend the whole day, just looking after me, meditating, doing nothing. No. Right. And it is the same as when I come home. It takes 30 minutes roughly for us to change gears. So when I have gone out and I've done a workshop or I've spoken or whatever it is, when I come home, I need half an hour. And so I disappear into the bathroom and I have a bath and I do whatever it is that I need to do. I'm not saying your practices have to look the same as mine, but I need half an hour of being, so that I can come back into my life and I can serve, I can look after my kid, I can talk with my husband, I can do the housework, whatever it is. Right. So yeah, they couple each other, not one or the other.
Right. That's awesome. Well, if someone wanted to speak with you further, if anyone who watches this would like to hire your services, let's just
Yeah.
say, how would they
Yep.
reach out to you?
They can find me if you go to my website. It's kaileyveenstra.com, and I can pop it in the comments. You can just go to my website, and all the information is there. My Instagram is on there. My Facebook is on there. And honestly, reach out. Like, I respond to all my messages, so direct message me and let me know what's going on in your life and how I can help you, whether that's through one-on-one coaching, whether that's a Sacred Circle Sisterhood, whether that's attending a workshop, either online or in person. But we can start a conversation, because I want to know people for who they are and their story, because that's how we grow and we learn and we heal in life, is by actually knowing people and having those heart-to-heart conversations. So
Right. Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Oh,
you
thank
taking the
you.
time. I hope that
Yes.
people find value in this. And I apologize for my
Yes.
technical difficulties I seem to be having with my camera. But
I don't,
you
that's
didn't see it?
fine.
It was like flipping
I
out.
did for a minute,
Yeah,
but
it was
these things
weird.
happen. I'm trying to
Yeah,
pop in my, okay, there, I put in the website.
perfect. I'm going to link your Instagram also. So
Awesome.
awesome. I hope
Cool.
this, serves the people. And I look forward to continuing whatever journey we have together.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ray.
Awesome. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.